Snow drifts softly through the Manhattan night, each flake catching the streetlights like silent sparks of magic. On the corner of an old cobblestone street in the Lower East Side, a small cafe called the Amber Hearth stands, with its glass windows glowing warm gold against the skin cutting cold of Christmas night. Inside, quiet laughter blends with the clink of cups, wrapped in the scent of cinnamon and freshly roasted coffee beans. A modest Christmas tree, decorated with care and love with hand-tied bows and a wooden star, stands quietly beside the fireplace. The cafe is not crowded, only a few couples sipping cocoa, one man reading by the window, and a handful of families sheltering from the cold. This place feels as if stories have been sleeping inside every floorboard, waiting to be awakened. The door opens with a gentle chime. Marcus Blackwood walks in, tall, broad-shouldered, a sharp-featured face with a faint scar running from the corner of his left eye down to his cheekbone. He wears a long black wool coat, and beneath it, a perfectly tailored dark gray suit. His steel gray eyes sweep the room on instinct, the habit of a man who has lived in shadow for far too long. At 37, Marcus Blackwood is a name that makes the entire Manhattan underworld bow its head. The Blackwood Empire controls half the business in Lower Manhattan, and a single nod from him can decide the fate of dozens of people. But tonight, he does not come here as a kingpin. He has just left a tense meeting, the kind where blood can spill if a single word is wrong. He is tired. Not the tiredness of the body, but the kind that sinks into the soul. The kind money and power cannot heal. This cafe, small, warm, imperfect, is his secret refuge. A rare pause in a life filled with darkness and blood-soaked numbers. He orders a whiskey and takes his usual dark corner, his back to the wall, where he can watch the entire room without anyone seeing his face. Vince, his loyal right hand, sits a few tables away, his eyes never leaving the entrance. Marcus looks through the fogged glass into the snowy darkness outside. His fingers turn the glass slowly, but he does not drink. His mind is empty, or at least he tries to make it empty. Then he hears it. The first notes are very soft, a slightly out-of-tune piano, played with the careful touch of someone still learning. Small fingers, hesitant, pressing the keys one note at a time. Marcus does not turn right away. He has heard countless people play the piano in his life, but as the melody begins to form, as those painfully familiar notes fill the air, he freezes. The whiskey glass stops midair. Moonlit Promise. He whispers the name like a curse. He has not heard that song in 8 years. A melody never played in public, never recorded, never existing anywhere but in his memory and in hers. Sophia. She wrote that song for him when they were 20 and 29, when love still felt endless, when he still believed he could leave everything behind, the empire, the darkness, the blood, and the tears, and begin again with her. She planned to play it for the first time at her graduation recital, the recital where he promised he would sit in the front row, but that day never came. Sophia vanished. No goodbye, no message, no trace, as if she had never existed, as if 8 years of love had been nothing but a dream. Marcus searched for her. He used every resource, every connection, every ounce of strength in the Blackwood Empire to find her. But Sophia Winters seemed to evaporate from the face of the earth. In the end, he gave up. He buried that song along with his heart, and built walls of ice no one could pierce. And now, in a small cafe, on Christmas night, that melody is alive again, through the fingers of a child. Marcus turns slowly, as if afraid that if he moves too fast, the illusion will disappear. Near the Christmas tree, a little girl sits on an old piano bench, about 5 years old, light blonde curls tied back with a red ribbon, a pale blue dress falling to her knees, her small legs swinging because they cannot reach the floor. She plays with absolute focus, her brows knitting slightly whenever her fingers strike the wrong key, but she does not stop. She gives what she lacks in technique, with sheer heart. Vince senses something is wrong. In 5 years of working for Marcus, he has never seen his boss like this. Those cold gray eyes suddenly tremble. That hand grips the nearest chair so hard the knuckles turn white. When the final note dissolves into nothing, Marcus realizes he has stood up. The whiskey is forgotten on the table. His heart pounds in his chest, a rhythm he thought had died long ago. The little girl finishes, then gives an adorable bow to a few scattered claps from the cafe. Then she hops down, runs to a nearby table, and takes a sip of hot cocoa, her cheeks flushed with satisfaction. Marcus walks toward her, each step heavy, as though he is walking across broken glass. He kneels beside the girl, trying not to frighten her, but his voice comes out rough when he speaks. "You played beautifully." The girl looks up, her blue eyes clear as a summer sky. She smiles, not a hint of fear at the strange man with the scar on his face. "Thank you, mister." Marcus swallows hard. Can I ask? Where did you learn that song? The girl tilts her head, as if the question is obvious. From my mom. Marcus's heart misses a beat. Your mom. The girl nods eagerly, turning her cocoa cup in her hands. Yes. Mom said she wrote it a long, long time ago. For someone she still dreams about every night. Marcus's breath catches. His mouth opens, but no words come out. He stares at the child, at her innocent smile, the quiet confidence in the way she sits, the soft blonde curls, just like Sophia. The girl does not notice the shock in the man's eyes. She takes another sip of cocoa, then adds, cheerful, as if sharing a secret. It is my favorite song. Mom says this song makes the snow feel warmer. Marcus says nothing. He cannot. Outside, snow continues to fall, light and slow, whitening the old street. But inside the small cafe, time has stopped. In the echo of a melody he buried, in the innocent words of a child who does not know the weight of what she carries, Marcus feels something breaking inside him. Or maybe, being put back together. Sophia. She is the only one who could write that song. The only one who knows every note of it. The only one. What is your mom's name? Marcus asks, his voice raw. Sophia, the girl answers. Proud as if it is the most beautiful name in the world. Sophia Winters. My mom makes the best coffee in the whole world. She points toward the counter, where warm yellow light falls over white ceramic cups. My mom is right there. Marcus rises slowly, turning his head in the direction of that small finger, and the world tilts. She steps out from behind the bar, a towel in her hand, cocoa powder and coffee stains on her apron, light blonde hair tied in a loose ponytail, a few gentle curls fallen against her cheekbones, much thinner than before. Those sea blue eyes are still beautiful, but now they carry the exhaustion of someone who has endured too much. Her skin is pale from lack of sleep. Calluses roughen her hands that once danced over piano keys, now hardened by heavy work. But it is still her, still Sophia. Their eyes meet. 8 years collapse into a single second. Sophia stands frozen. The towel slips from her hand to the floor, and she does not even notice. Her blue eyes widen, frightened and stunned, as if she is seeing a ghost from the past. And maybe that is exactly what he is. Emma. Sophia's voice rings out, trembling but trying to stay controlled. Go get your coat, sweetheart. We are closing soon. The little girl, Emma, hops down, carefree, running to her mother. She takes Sophia's hand and tugs. Mom, this mister really likes your song. He listened and he just stood there without moving at all. Sophia does not look at her child. Her gaze stays locked on Marcus, as if she fears that if she turns away, he will disappear. Or maybe she hopes he will. Marcus steps closer. Only one step. But Sophia steps back, instinctively pulling Emma behind her. Sophia. He says her name, his voice low and rough, as if that name is the most sacred thing he has ever spoken. She swallows. Her face goes blank, an invisible wall rising between them. I did not expect to see you here, she says, quiet and even. Especially here. Silence. Heavy. Painful. Vince stands behind Marcus, his hand already moving inside his suit jacket by reflex. But he stops when he understands. This is not an enemy. This is her. The woman Marcus Blackwood, the coldest Mafia kingpin in New York, once would have burned his entire empire to be with. Sophia quickly helps Emma into her coat. Her movements rushed, like someone trying to escape. We have to go. She takes her daughter's hand and moves fast toward the back door. Sophia. Marcus calls again, and there is something in his voice that is almost pleading, a sound Vince has never heard from him. Sophia stops. Her back remains turned. Merry Christmas, Marcus. Then she walks away. The door closes behind mother and daughter, bringing a sweep of outside cold into the cafe. Marcus stands alone in the middle of the room, his hand gripping the nearest chair so tightly the wood creaks. In his head, 1,000 questions spin like a storm. Why is she here? Whose child is that? Why did she leave? Why did she never come back? Why? Does she still sing that song to her daughter? Boss. Vince comes closer, cautious. She is. Find out everything about her. Marcus cuts in, his voice cold as ice, but his eyes burning. Her address, her job, her life, everything. But do not let her know. Vince nods, asking nothing more. Marcus turns back to the old piano where Emma had been sitting. On the lid, there is still a tiny handprint, pressed into a thin layer of dust. He places his palm over it, completely covering that small mark. Where have you been all this time, Sophia? He whispers into the empty air. And why? Do you still dream about me? Outside, the snow keeps falling. But Marcus Blackwood no longer feels cold. For the first time in 8 years, the frozen heart of the Mafia kingpin is beginning to melt, and he knows that even if he has to burn all of New York, he will not lose her again. Not this time. Never again. If your heart is trembling along with this story, please tap like to send love to the lonely souls still trying to find their way home. Share this video with the one you love most, because sometimes a story can remind them of this. True love never truly disappears. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you will not miss the next part of this journey, filled with tears and hope. The black Bentley glided smoothly through the sleeping streets of Manhattan, streetlights flickering and reflecting on the tinted windows like falling stars. Marcus sat in silence in the back seat, gray eyes fixed on nothing at all, yet his mind was somewhere far away, 8 years ago, where everything began and where everything ended. Vince drove without a word. He knew when his boss needed silence, and tonight was one of those nights. Marcus's penthouse sat on the top floor of a luxury building on the Upper East Side, high enough to see the entire Manhattan skyline glittering like a sea of lights. But when he stepped into the vast apartment, the opulence only made the emptiness louder. No warmth, no laughter, no trace of her scent on the pillow, only darkness, and a silence so thick it stole the breath from his lungs. He did not turn on the lights. He went straight to the wall of glass and looked down at the city sinking under white snow, a whiskey in his hand, untouched. His thoughts would not stop circling back to the first night he met her. Marcus was 29 then. He already held half the Blackwood empire after his father's death. He was used to people lowering their heads when he entered a room. He believed he could no longer feel anything but cold. Then he walked into a small piano bar in Greenwich Village, where he had come to meet a business partner, and his life changed forever. Sophia was playing on the small stage. Her blonde hair spilled over her shoulders. Her blue eyes were closed, as if she had slipped into a world of her own. She played a Chopin nocturne, and each note felt like it was telling a story meant for him alone. Marcus stopped in the doorway, forgetting the appointment, forgetting the partner, forgetting even who he was. He knew only one thing. He had to speak to that girl, no matter what it cost. That night, he stayed in the darkest corner of the bar until her shift ended. Then he approached her with a glass of lemonade, and a smile he did not even recognize as his own. She looked at him with eyes that held no fear, no flattery, only the pure curiosity of someone who has noticed something interesting. They talked until the bar closed. Then they walked along the empty streets until dawn painted the horizon pink. Sophia did not know who he was. She only knew he was Marcus, the man who liked to sit in the darkest corner, and who carried the saddest eyes she had ever seen. And Marcus, for the first time in his life, was loved for who he was, not for power or money. The months that followed were the happiest time of his life. He went to the bar every night just to hear her play. Then they would walk, talk, share their dreams. Sophia wanted to become a pianist. She wanted to write music. She wanted to reach into other people's hearts through melody. And Marcus, for the first time, began to dream of another life. A life without blood, without darkness. Only her, and music, he decided. He would leave the empire. He would hand everything to Vince, or sell it off. He would start over from the beginning with Sophia. He had even begun putting things in order, preparing for the day he could finally be free. Sophia's graduation recital drew closer. She had practiced for months for the piece she wrote just for him, Moonlit Promise. She told him it was her promise to him, that no matter what happened, the moonlight would always lead them back to each other. Marcus still remembered that morning. He wore a black suit. He carried a bouquet of white roses. He arrived at the recital hall with a heart pounding wild with anticipation. But Sophia never came. He waited in confusion, calling dozens of times, but no one answered. He ran to her apartment and found only a locked door and silence. He searched like a man gone mad, using every resource of the Blackwood Empire, but Sophia Winters seemed to evaporate from the earth. No one knew where she went. No one knew what happened. She disappeared, taking his heart with her, leaving behind a hollow space nothing could fill. Marcus stood by the glass now, watching the snow fall, and realized his cheek was wet. For the first time in 8 years, the coldest Mafia kingpin in New York was crying, not with anger, not from betrayal, but because he had just understood something. Sophia did not abandon him. She still dreamed about him every night. She still taught her daughter the song she wrote for him. For 8 years, he had believed she had forgotten him, chosen another life. But tonight, through Emma's tiny fingers, he knew the truth was something else entirely. And even though he did not yet know what had happened, even though he still did not understand why she had to leave, Marcus Blackwood knew one thing with certainty. He would find the truth. He would not lose her one more time. The small apartment above the cafe has only one bedroom, a cramped kitchen corner, and an old sofa with fabric worn thin. But for Sophia, this is home. It is where she and Emma can shelter from rain and wind. It is everything she has been able to give her daughter after so many years of wrestling with life. Sophia sits beside the bed, watching Emma sleep deeply. Her blonde curls spread across the pillow, her pink lips slightly parted as if she is smiling inside her dream. Sophia gently smooths her daughter's hair, her fingers trembling, and the tears she has forced back all night finally spill down her cheeks. Marcus. She saw him again. After 8 years, after everything that happened, he stood there in her cafe, with gray eyes still deep as the ocean, and a new scar on his face she did not remember. He looked at her as if she were a ghost, and maybe, to him, she truly is. Sophia hugs her knees and leans her back against the cold wall, and the memories of 8 years ago surge back like a tsunami she cannot stop. 1 week before her graduation recital, Sophia received a call from the hospital. Her mother, Catherine Winters, the woman who raised her alone after her father walked away when Sophia was 10 years old, had collapsed at work. The test results came down like a death sentence. Late-stage lung cancer, already metastasized. The doctor said her mother had only a few months left, maybe less. Sophia still remembers standing in the hospital corridor, the phone slipping from her hand, the world around her collapsing completely. She was 20 years old. She was in love. She was dreaming of a future with Marcus. She was preparing for the most important performance of her life. And in a single moment, it all dissolved like smoke. She had to make a choice. Her mother needed her, needed care 24 hours a day, needed money for medication and chemotherapy, even knowing it would only stretch time. Sophia had no one else. No father, no brothers or sisters, no relatives, only her and her mother, the way it had always been. And Marcus. Sophia knew that if she told him, he would stay. He would abandon everything to be beside her. He would use his money and his power to help. But Sophia also knew what that would mean. He would be pulled into her tragedy. He would have to watch her mother wither day by day. He would have to carry a pain that was not his. And worse than that, Sophia knew about Marcus's world. Even though he never said it outright, she was not foolish. She knew he was not just an ordinary businessman. She did not want her pain to become his burden. She did not want him to be forced to choose between her and the empire he was trying to escape. So Sophia did what she believed was right at the time. She disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation, because she knew that if she looked into Marcus's eyes, she would not be able to leave. She deleted his number. She moved her mother to a small town in the suburbs of New Jersey. She dropped out of school. She abandoned music. She abandoned every dream. She became a nurse by necessity, working night shifts at a restaurant to earn money, and spending the day caring for her mother. 2 years passed in a living hell. Sophia watched her mother grow thinner, weaker, in more pain. She held her mother's hand on nights when the pain would not let her sleep, and she sang to her the songs her mother once sang to her when she was small. And on a bitter winter night, Catherine Winters took her final breath in her daughter's arms, a peaceful smile on her lips. Sophia was 22 years old, orphaned, exhausted, completely alone. She no longer had the strength to go back and look for Marcus. She did not even know if he still remembered her, or if there was someone else. She only knew she had to keep living. Somehow. Then Alex appeared. He was a bartender at the place where she worked, with an easy smile and sweet words. Sophia did not love him, but she was so lonely that she needed someone, anyone, to be there. That relationship did not last long. When Sophia found out she was pregnant, she told Alex, and he vanished into the night, the way she once vanished from Marcus's life. How ironic. Sophia gave birth to Emma alone. She raised her alone. She dragged herself up from the ashes alone. She worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs at once. She slept 4 hours each night. She pinched every penny. She moved to New York. She found work at Maggie's cafe and was allowed to live in the small apartment upstairs for a cheap rent. She taught Emma to play the piano on the battered old instrument in the cafe, passing on a love of music she thought had died long ago. And every night, when Emma slept, Sophia would look out the window, watch the snow fall, and whisper the song she wrote for the man she still loved. Moonlit promise. A promise beneath moonlight. Sophia wipes her tears and bends to kiss Emma's forehead. She does not regret the choices she made, because without them, she would not have Emma. But tonight, when she looked into Marcus's eyes, she understood something painful. She protected him from her tragedy, but maybe she also shattered his heart without even knowing it. And now, she does not know if there is any way to mend what has been broken. 3 days after that fateful Christmas night, Vince walked into Marcus's office on the top floor of Blackwood Tower. The room was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over all of Manhattan. But Marcus was not seated behind his expensive oak desk the way he usually was. He stood by the window, his back to the door, a glass in his hand that had been empty for a long time. Vince knew his boss had not truly slept for 3 nights, because Vince himself had been up through every one of them, gathering the information Marcus demanded. And what he found made even a hard man like Vince go quiet inside. "Boss, I have the report," Vince said, his voice low and careful. Marcus did not turn. He only gave a slight nod, and Vince understood that was the signal to continue. Sophia Winters, 28 years old, is currently working at the Amber Hearth Cafe in the Lower East Side. She works 2 jobs. During the day, she is a barista at the cafe. At night, she teaches piano to children at a community center nearby. Her monthly income is about $2,300, just enough to cover rent, food, and her daughter's schooling. She lives in a 1-bedroom apartment above the cafe, rented to her at a reduced rate by the owner, Maggie Chen. Vince paused, as if weighing how to say what came next. Her daughter's name is Emma, 5.5 years old. The child's father is Alex Foster, a former bartender, current whereabouts unknown. He ran the moment he learned Sophia was pregnant and has never appeared again. Marcus remained still, but Vince saw his shoulders tighten, his hand clenching the glass until his knuckles went white. 8 years ago, Vince continued, her mother, Catherine Winters, was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer, exactly 1 week before Sophia's graduation recital. She dropped out of school, moved her mother to New Jersey, and cared for her for 2 years until she died. After that, she worked whatever jobs she could just to survive, from waiting tables to washing dishes, before she met Alex Foster. When he left, she was 3 months pregnant. She gave birth alone. She has raised the child alone ever since. Silence settled over the room. Vince heard Marcus's heavy breathing. He saw the broad shoulders tremble, just slightly, and he wondered whether he should stop or keep going. But there was one more thing Marcus needed to know. "There is one more thing, boss. 5 years ago, Sophia sent a demo to Whitmore Records, the label owned by James Whitmore, our business partner. The demo was titled Moonlit Promise." Vince saw Marcus flinch, just barely, at the sound of that name. It was rejected. The reason noted in the file was that it did not fit the current brand direction. The rejection was signed by a low-level employee in the intake department. Marcus finally turned. His face was still ice-cold, but his gray eyes were burning, not with anger, but with something more frightening. Pure pain, a kind of regret that tore straight through the chest. 8 years. Marcus's voice was rough, as if every word had to be pulled out of a deep wound. 8 years she suffered alone. Her mother died. She was abandoned. She raised her child alone. She tried to send that song, the song she wrote for me, and she was rejected. And what did I do? I sat here in that luxurious penthouse, thinking she abandoned me. I hated her. I tried to forget her. "You did not know," Vince said softly. "I should have known," Marcus roared, hurling the empty glass into the wall. Shattering glass echoed through the silent room. "I have an empire, hundreds of people under me. I could find anyone in this world, but I gave up. I stopped searching because of pride, because I thought she did not deserve for me to keep looking. While she was alone, fighting the whole world." He moved to the window and braced both hands against the cold glass, his head lowered. Vince stayed still, not daring to add another word. He had worked for Marcus for 5 years. He had watched his boss face the most dangerous enemies in the underworld without flinching. But he had never seen Marcus like this, like a man collapsing from the inside out. "She did not abandon me, Vince," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking. "She protected me. She thought leaving was the best thing for me, and I hated her for it for 8 years. He turned back, and now there was a hard, unshakable determination in those gray eyes. "From now on, I want our people protecting her and Emma from a distance. Do not let her know. And prepare a plan for me to approach her. Slowly, without frightening her. I lost her once because I did not know the truth. I will not let that happen again." The following Saturday, Marcus returned to the Amber Hearth, but this time, he came alone. No Vince at his side, no entourage, no look of a Mafia kingpin. He wore a simple gray sweater, dark jeans, and a charcoal wool coat, looking like any ordinary man searching for shelter on a bitter winter afternoon. He pushed the door open, the familiar bell chiming softly, and the rich scent of roasted coffee wrapped around him at once like warm arms. The cafe was busier than the last time. Small families whispered over their tables. A few people sat reading by the window. Soft music drifted from the speakers, creating a calm that felt almost unreal. Marcus chose a corner table near the old piano, where he could see the whole cafe without drawing too much attention. He ordered a hot cocoa instead of whiskey, as he usually would, and when the server brought it, he realized it was not Sophia. She was behind the counter, hands moving quickly as she worked, glancing his way now and then with guarded caution, but not coming closer. Marcus understood. She needed time, and he was willing to wait. He had only taken his first sip of cocoa when he heard the patter of small feet on the wooden floor. Emma, in a pale pink knitted dress and white ballet flats, darted across the cafe like a little gust of wind. When she saw Marcus, her blue eyes lit up as if she had just discovered treasure. "Mister, you are the one who likes my mom's song." Emma ran straight to his table, without a second of hesitation, without a flicker of fear toward the man with the scar on his face. She climbed onto the chair across from him, her legs swinging because they could not reach the floor, and she looked at Marcus with pure, curious wonder. "You came back. I knew you would come back. Mom did not believe it, but I did." Marcus felt a smile rise to his lips without asking permission, something he thought he had forgotten how to do a long time ago. "Why did you believe that?" Emma tilted her head, her expression serious, like a tiny philosopher. "Because when you listened to my mom's song, you did not move at all. Only people who really love music do that. My mom does that too when she hears a beautiful song." Marcus did not answer. He only looked at her, and something strange swelled in his chest. Emma had Sophia's eyes, sea blue and clear as a summer sky. She had Sophia's blonde curls, Sophia's bright smile, even the way she tilted her head when she thought was exactly like her mother. "Do you want to hear me play?" Emma asked, her eyes sparkling. "I am practicing a new song. It is not my mom's song, but it is really good too." "I would love to," Marcus replied, his voice so gentle that it surprised even him. Emma hopped down and ran to the old piano, climbing onto the bench. She placed her tiny fingers on the keys, took a deep breath the way her mother had taught her, and began to play. It was a simple piece, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," but Emma played with such focus and seriousness, as if she were performing at Carnegie Hall. She missed a few notes in the middle, but she did not stop. She kept going, with the astonishing patience of a 5-year-old child. Marcus sat quietly, listening to each note ring out in the cafe's warm air. He did not watch the small hands moving over the keys. He watched Emma's concentrated face, the way her brows pinched whenever she tried to remember the next note, the satisfied smile when she got a difficult part right. And in that moment, he felt something melting inside his chest, something he thought had been frozen forever. Behind the counter, Sophia stood still, a towel in her hand, forgetting to move. She watched Marcus watching her daughter. She watched the way he leaned forward, as if he could not bear to miss a single note. She watched the soft smile on his mouth when Emma finished, and gave her adorable little bow. Sophia's heart tightened. This was not the Mafia kingpin she had read about on the internet. This was Marcus, the man she loved 8 years ago, the man she believed she had lost forever. When Emma ran to the back to grab her school bag for her piano lesson this afternoon, Marcus stood and walked to the piano. He pulled a small piece of paper from his coat pocket, scribbled a few words quickly with the pen he always carried, folded it, and set it gently on the piano lid. He did not look back at Sophia. He did not try to move closer to her. He simply left the cafe in silence, the bell above the door trembling softly behind him. Sophia waited until he was gone. Then she walked, slowly, to the piano. She picked up the paper, unfolded it, and read the handwriting that felt painfully familiar. "Thank you for the music, Emma. I will come back to hear you play." Sophia stood there for a long time, the note in her hand, and for the first time in 8 years, she did not know what she was supposed to feel. Fear, hope, or both. In the weeks that followed, Marcus became the most familiar regular at the Amber Hearth. He came every Saturday and Sunday, always sitting at the corner table near the old piano, ordering a hot cocoa, and staying until almost closing time. He never tried to approach Sophia. He never forced her to speak to him. He simply watched from a distance, and gave his time to Emma whenever the little girl ran to his table with that bright, wide smile. And each time he came, he brought a small gift for her. Simple gifts, but each one carried a kind of care that only someone who truly listened could ever give. The first week, he brought a book of fairy tales, richly illustrated, shimmering with beautiful pictures. Emma squealed with delight as she turned each page, her eyes lit up by princesses and castles. "I like Cinderella the most," she told Marcus, and he nodded, storing it quietly in his heart. The next week, he brought 2 more, one about Beauty and the Beast, one about the Little Mermaid, and Emma hugged them to her chest, as if she were holding the greatest treasure in the world. The third week, he saw Emma sitting in a corner of the cafe, trying to draw something with colored pencils that were nearly broken down to stubs, and a wrinkled sheet of paper worn thin from being erased again and again. She frowned, pressing hard with a dull orange pencil to fill in her picture, but the color came out pale and uneven. Marcus watched in silence. His heart tightened as he saw those tiny fingers trying to make something beautiful with such poor tools. He said nothing. He only left earlier than usual. Sophia watched his back as he went, her eyes filled with questions. The next morning, just as the cafe opened, a package arrived addressed to Emma Winters. Maggie, the owner, called the little girl over with a curious look, and Emma tore into the wrapping with the eager joy of a child receiving a gift. Inside was a professional pastel set with 72 bright colors, a thick sketchpad of high-quality paper, and a set of watercolor pencils soft as silk. There was also a small card, with handwriting that felt familiar. For the little artist who can see music in color, Emma stood frozen. Her hands trembled around the box of colors, her eyes so wide she could hardly believe what she was seeing. She touched each pencil with reverence, as if they were made of pure gold. Then she pulled out the orange pencil, her favorite color, the color she had tried to fill in with that broken stub the day before. She turned to her mother, her voice a whisper of astonishment. "Mom, he knows I like orange. I never told him, but he knows." Sophia stood behind the counter, watching her daughter clutch the box of colors like treasure, and something rose in her throat until it hurt to swallow. Marcus was not just looking at Emma, he was truly seeing her. He noticed the small things Sophia, a mother juggling 2 jobs and 1,000 worries, sometimes missed. He saw the broken pencil. He saw the frustration when the color would not go on the way Emma wanted. He saw the quiet love for orange that Emma had never said out loud. He listened, not with his ears, with his heart. In the weeks after that, the gifts kept coming. A pair of pink knitted gloves when Marcus saw Emma's hands turn red with cold. A knitted hat with bunny ears when the little girl told him she liked rabbits more than cats. A tiny music box that played Moonlit Promise when Emma asked him if he knew her mother's song. None of the gifts were expensive in a showy way, but every one of them proved Marcus had heard every word Emma said, remembered every small detail, chosen carefully, with the tenderness of a man who truly cared. Emma began calling him Uncle Marcus instead of Mr. She ran to his table whenever she saw him step through the door, telling him about school, about the new piano piece she had learned, about the stray cat she spotted in the alley. And Marcus listened, always listened, with gentle eyes and a soft smile that Vince, if he could see it, would never believe belonged to his cold mafia boss. Sophia watched all of it from a distance. She watched her daughter open her heart to the man she had left 8 years ago without a word. She watched Marcus sit patiently, listening to Emma chatter for hours, without the slightest sign of boredom. She watched the way he bent down to Emma's eye level when he spoke to her, the way he clapped when Emma finished a piano piece, even when she still missed many notes, the way he quietly observed and remembered every small thing about her child. And day by day, the wall Sophia had built around her heart began to crack. She stopped calling him a memory. Somewhere deep inside, she began calling him by the name she had tried to forget for 8 years. Marcus, the man she still loved. One Sunday afternoon at the end of January, when the snow had just stopped falling and a rare sun broke through the gray clouds to spill pale gold across Manhattan streets, Sophia made a decision she never expected herself to make. Emma had just finished her piano lesson at the community center, and when mother and daughter stepped outside, Marcus was waiting on the street corner, holding 2 steaming cups of hot cocoa and a box of ginger cookies from the bakery Emma had once mentioned. The little girl squealed when she saw him. She ran over like a tiny whirlwind and took the cocoa with her pink knitted gloves, the gloves he himself had given her the week before. Sophia paused a step behind, watching Marcus hand the cocoa to her daughter, watching the way he bent down to ask if Emma had enjoyed her lesson, watching the gentle smile on his mouth as the little girl began chattering excitedly. And in that moment, she made the decision. "You can walk back to the cafe with us," Sophia said, her voice soft but clear. The first time she had spoken to Marcus of her own choice since Christmas night. "If you want to." Marcus looked up at her. A flicker of surprise crossed his gray eyes, then quickly softened. "I want to," he answered, his voice low and warm. "I really want to." They began walking along the snow-covered street, Emma in the middle, one hand holding her mother's, the other holding Marcus's. She skipped, trying to stomp on small patches of snow, giggling each time it sprayed up onto her red boots. Sophia walked on the left, quiet but no longer tense the way she had been before, glancing at Marcus now and then, as if she were trying to read the thoughts behind those deep gray eyes. Marcus walked on the right, matching his pace to Emma's small steps, his heart strangely warm even as the winter wind still cut cold. "Uncle Marcus, do you have a daughter?" Emma asked suddenly, looking up at him with clear blue eyes. Marcus was silent for a moment, then shook his head. "No, sweetheart, I do not have a daughter." "Then are you sad?" Emma pressed on, the curiosity of a child having no limits. "I see a lot of kids in my class have a dad. Their dad takes them out, buys them ice cream, tells them bedtime stories. You do not have anyone to do those things with." Sophia drew in a breath, about to step in, but Marcus answered first. "I used to be very sad," he said, gentle and honest. "But now, walking with you and your mom like this, I am not sad anymore." Emma nodded, her face serious, as if she were thinking deeply about his answer. She stayed quiet for a while, stomping through the snow again. Then she stopped suddenly, making both Sophia and Marcus stop with her. She looked up at Marcus, and her blue eyes carried something older than her years, as if she were asking a question without knowing how important it was. "Uncle Marcus, if a mom writes a song for someone, and that person is not there to hear it, do you think the song feels sad?" Marcus went still. Emma's question was an arrow straight through his heart, waking every memory he had tried to bury for 8 years. "Moonlit Promise," the song Sophia wrote for him, the song she planned to play for the first time at her graduation recital, the song he never got to hear from her hands, only through the tiny fingers of the child standing in front of him. That song had waited for him for 8 years, sung like a lullaby to a little girl every night, kept alive inside the heart of a woman who sacrificed everything to protect him. Would that song feel sad? "Yes," Marcus finally said, his voice rough. "I think that song would be very sad. It would be sad because it was written in love, but the one it was written for was not there to hear it. It would be sad because it had to wait a very, very long time, not knowing if there would ever be a day when it could be heard in the right place, at the right time." Emma looked at him, then at her mother, then back at him. "But now you have heard it," she said, her voice as clear as wind chimes. "I played it for you. So the song is not sad anymore, right?" Marcus knelt down to her eye level, and he felt his eyes sting. "That is right, Emma. Because of you, the song is not sad anymore. Thank you." Emma smiled, bright as sunlight, then suddenly wrapped her arms around Marcus's neck. "I am glad you are not sad anymore," she whispered into his ear. Sophia stood a few steps away, watching her daughter hold the man she had left 8 years ago, and tears slid down her cheeks before she even realized it. She turned her face away, pretending to watch the snow on the street. But inside, her heart was breaking and healing at the same time. Emma did not know how important her question was. She asked only because she was curious, because she was the innocent child she was, 5 years old. But that question did what 8 years of distance could not. It opened a door both Marcus and Sophia had been afraid to step through. That morning, when Sophia opened the doors of the Amber Hearth at 6 o'clock, the way she always did, she stopped dead on the threshold, unable to believe her eyes. In the corner of the cafe, where the old piano had stood for years with yellowed keys and a slightly crooked sound, there was now a completely different upright piano. The new instrument had been restored with meticulous care from a classic vintage piece, its walnut wood gleaming under the warm yellow lights, its ivory white keys pure and bright beside black keys smooth as velvet. It was so beautiful, Sophia had to draw in a deep breath, as if she feared that if she breathed too hard, the illusion would vanish. Maggie stood behind the counter, a cup of hot tea in her hand, wearing a mysterious smile. "Someone delivered it at 5 o'clock this morning," she said gently. "I did not ask. I do not need to know. But there was a card on the piano bench." Sophia walked over, her feet hardly touching the ground, and picked up the small cream-colored card placed on the bench. She opened it, and the familiar handwriting made her heart ache. For the little pianist with the brave hands. M.B. She stood there, staring at the card, staring at the piano, and tears rose up and spilled over before she could stop them. This was not an ordinary piano. This was the kind of piano she had dreamed of when she was studying music, the kind she knew she would never be able to afford in her entire life. And Marcus, somehow, had known that. He had listened. He had watched. He had understood the dreams she had never spoken out loud. "Mom! Mom!" Emma's voice rang from the staircase, and the little girl came running down like a small gust of wind, her blonde curls still tousled from sleep. When she saw the new piano, she went still, her blue eyes widening until they nearly filled her small face. She walked toward it one step at a time, slowly, as if she were stepping into a dream and was afraid she might wake up. "Mom, a new piano," Emma whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "It is so beautiful, Mom. It is so beautiful." She touched the keys, gently, reverently, as if touching a priceless treasure. Then she pressed down a single note, The sound rose clear, pure, and perfect. So perfect that both Sophia and Maggie held their breath. Emma pressed a few more notes, her eyes shining, then turned to her mother with the brightest smile Sophia had ever seen. "Uncle Marcus gave it, right, Mom?" Emma asked, even though she already knew the answer. Sophia nodded, unable to speak because her throat had tightened shut. Emma turned back to the piano, her small hands smoothing over the polished wood. "I knew it," she said, her voice full of pride. "I knew Uncle Marcus is a good person. He always listens to me. He always remembers what I say. He knew I like orange. He knew I like fairy tales. He knew I wanted a really beautiful piano to play Mom's song." Emma turned again and looked at her mother with those clear eyes, and she said something that made Sophia grip the counter so she would not collapse. "Mom, I think Uncle Marcus is the person who keeps dreams safe, like in fairy tales. There are people who are born to protect other people's dreams. Uncle Marcus is like that." Sophia did not answer. She only stood there, watching her daughter climb onto the new piano bench, place her tiny fingers on the keys, and begin to play Moonlit Promise. The melody filled the cafe, clearer and purer than it had ever been on the new instrument, and Sophia felt as if she were hearing her own heart again, the way it had sounded 8 years ago. She turned toward the window, and her heart missed a beat. Marcus stood outside, in his familiar black wool coat, hands in his pockets, looking into the cafe with deep gray eyes. He did not come in. He did not interrupt. He only stood there beneath the weak early winter sun, listening to the melody drifting out from inside. When their eyes met through the glass, Marcus gave a small smile. A gentle, warm smile Sophia remembered from 8 years ago. The smile of the young man who sat in the darkest corner of a piano bar and watched her play as if she were his whole world. Sophia did not look away. She stood there, meeting his gaze through the window. And for the first time in 8 years, she did not call him a memory anymore. A memory belongs to the past. A memory is something dead, something that cannot return. But Marcus was standing there, alive, real, present. And he was looking at her with the gaze she knew had always belonged only to her. He was not a memory. He was the present. And maybe, if she was brave enough, he could be the future too. Sophia lifted her hand and placed it against the cold glass, as if reaching for him from far away. And outside, Marcus raised his hand as well, pressing his palm to the exact same spot. Only a thin sheet of glass separated them, yet it felt as distant as an ocean. They stood there, two silhouettes on opposite sides of the window, while the melody of Moonlit Promise rose like a promise from 8 years ago. Finally kept in full, that night began like any other ordinary night. Sophia read a story to Emma, kissed her daughter's forehead, and turned off the light at 8 o'clock. She went downstairs to clean the cafe, to set everything up for tomorrow, then climbed into bed at 11, carrying the familiar exhaustion of a single mother working 2 jobs. But at midnight, Emma's weak crying tore Sophia awake, and when Sophia touched her daughter's forehead, the blood in her body seemed to freeze. Emma had a fever, a very high fever. Sophia snatched the thermometer, and the number that appeared made panic explode inside her. 39.8. She gave Emma fever medicine. She pressed a cold cloth to her forehead, but an hour later, the temperature did not drop. It climbed. 40. Emma began to struggle for breath, her breathing shallow and fast, her blue eyes half open but no longer recognizing her mother. Her little body shivered. Her lips turned pale, and the faint moans slipping from her small throat drove Sophia nearly out of her mind with fear. She called the neighborhood clinic, but no one answered at this hour. She called the public hospital, and they told her the emergency room was overloaded, that the waiting time could be as long as 4 to 5 hours. She called a private hospital, and when she heard the pediatric emergency fees, her hand shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. $1,500 for the exam and initial tests alone, not counting medication, not counting a room if Emma had to stay overnight. Sophia looked into her wallet, where only $200 remained until the end of the month. She looked at her bank balance on her phone, where the remaining amount was not enough to cover even 1/10 of the cost. Emma cried, a thin, painful sound, and Sophia pulled her close, tears sliding down her cheeks without her even noticing. She did not know what to do. She had no one to call, no family, no close friends she could ask for a large amount of money in the middle of the night. She had only herself, the way she had always been alone for so many years. In her panic, her finger drifted across her contacts without thinking. She did not know who she was looking for until she saw the name. Marcus Blackwood, the number he had left on a small slip of paper with Emma's gift the week before. She had saved it in her phone without knowing why, maybe out of habit, maybe because a part of her still wanted to keep a thread tied to him even if she would not admit it. Sophia did not mean to text him. She only meant to stare at the name for a moment, then find another way. But Emma moaned again. Her small body jerked in a slight convulsion from the high fever. And in that flash of terror, Sophia's finger touched the screen. A message sent before she could stop it. Emma has a high fever. I do not know what to do. That was all. No greeting. No explanation. Only the desperate cry of a mother asking for help. Sophia stared at the sent message, wanting to undo it, but it was too late. She started to type another message to apologize for bothering him. Then her phone vibrated. Marcus was calling. She did not answer. She only watched the screen until the call ended. Then a text appeared. I am coming. 20 minutes. Exactly 20 minutes later, a knock sounded at the door. Sophia opened it, and Marcus stood there, his hair slightly disheveled as if he had jumped out of bed, worry filling his eyes. He did not ask questions. He did not wait to be invited in. He walked straight into the apartment and went to Emma's bed. When he saw the little girl lying there, her face flushed with fever, her breathing weak and labored, his jaw clenched and his gray eyes darkened, Marcus bent down and lifted Emma gently, as careful as if she were the most precious treasure on earth. She did not wake. She only gave a faint moan and let her head rest against his shoulder. He turned to Sophia, his words short, but edged with absolute decision. Let us go. Sophia did not ask where. She did not ask how. She grabbed her coat and ran after him down the stairs, where the black Bentley waited at the curb, engine already running. Vince was behind the wheel, his face grim, and when Marcus set Emma into the back seat and motioned for Sophia to sit beside her child, the car shot into the night like an arrow slicing through wind. The black Bentley tore through the empty Manhattan streets at midnight, and in only 15 minutes, they reached the gate of Mount Sinai, one of the best private hospitals in New York. Sophia did not have time to ask how they were able to go straight into the pediatric emergency wing without waiting. She did not have time to ask why the doctors and nurses nodded to Marcus, as if he were someone they knew well. She only knew that within minutes of stepping through the hospital doors, Emma was placed on a bed. A heart monitor and oxygen were fitted. A doctor examined her immediately, instead of leaving them to wait for hours the way a public hospital would. Acute respiratory infection, the doctor told Sophia after the exam, his tone serious but not panicked. She needs to be monitored overnight and treated with intravenous antibiotics. Luckily, you brought her in on time. If it had been a few more hours, it could have progressed into pneumonia. Sophia sat beside her daughter's bed, gripping Emma's tiny hand, staring at the little girl lying there with an IV in her arm, an oxygen mask covering half her face, while tears kept spilling down Sophia's cheeks. Emma was more stable now. Her temperature had begun to drop after the injection, but Sophia's heart still hammered with fear. She had almost lost her child. If Marcus had not come, if she had been forced to wait at the public hospital, if she could not afford treatment in time, she could not bear to finish the thought. Marcus stood in the corner of the room, watching quietly, not wanting to intrude on the private space between mother and daughter. Then the doctor stepped out, and an administrative staff member walked in with a stack of paperwork and a bill. Sophia saw the numbers and felt as if someone had punched her in the stomach. Emergency fees, room charges, medication, overnight monitoring, almost $5,000 for a single night. She did not have $5,000. She did not even have $1,000. I will take care of it. Marcus's voice came from behind her, low and solid. All of it. He stepped forward, handed a credit card to the administrator. Give the bill to me. Sophia rose, ready to protest. But Marcus turned and looked at her. His gray eyes held no pity, no sense of charity, only real worry, and something deeper she did not dare to name. No conditions, Sophia, he said, gentle but firm. For Emma, I do not need you to pay me back. I do not need you to promise anything. I only need Emma to get well. That is all. Sophia looked at him, looked into the eyes she once loved with a kind of madness 8 years ago, and she could not hold herself together anymore. Tears poured like rain, her body shook, and she cried the way she had not been able to cry through all those years. She cried from relief, because Emma would be all right. She cried from shame, because she could not provide for her child on her own. She cried from gratitude, because the man in front of her had appeared at the exact moment she needed him most. And she cried because 8 years of loneliness had finally been shared by someone else. Marcus said nothing. He simply walked closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. Not an embrace, not pulling her into him, just a gentle touch, so she would know he was here, so she would know she was not alone anymore. Sophia nodded, unable to speak, and that was all the permission Marcus needed. That night, Sophia sat by Emma's bed, her eyes never leaving her daughter for even a second. She held the little hand, listened to the steady rhythm of the heart monitor, and slowly, The exhaustion of so many days and nights without real rest finally defeated her. She fell asleep in the stiff chair beside the hospital bed, her head bowed forward, her hand still tightly holding Emma's. Marcus sat in the corner, watching mother and child in the dim hospital light. When he saw Sophia shiver lightly in her sleep, he stood, removed the suit vest he was wearing, and gently draped it over her shoulders. His movements were so careful they did not wake her. She only shifted slightly, pulling the vest closer around herself in her sleep. He returned to his chair, sat down, and kept watch through the night. At 3 a.m, a nurse passed by the room to check on Emma's condition. She paused in the doorway, taking in the scene. A woman asleep with a man's vest on her shoulders. A man sitting in the dark corner, his eyes never leaving them for even a second. The nurse smiled, a soft, knowing smile, and she whispered to the colleague beside her, "People still write love stories. They just live them first." Then she moved on quietly, leaving the room in the hush of night, where love was silently mending the wounds 8 years of distance had left behind. 3 days later, Emma was discharged with a radiant smile and her health fully restored. She hugged the teddy bear Marcus had bought her during the hospital stay, chattering to her mother about the fairy tales. Uncle Marcus read to her whenever Mom fell asleep from sheer exhaustion. Sophia watched her daughter, her heart overflowing with gratitude, and with something else she did not dare to name. Marcus had been with them through all 3 days and nights, going home only to change clothes and then returning, bringing food for Sophia, bringing toys for Emma, always ready to carry the little girl for a walk along the hospital corridors whenever she grew tired of lying still. But when they returned to the small apartment above the cafe, when Emma was finally asleep after those draining days, Sophia sat alone in the dark and began to think. She realized she did not truly know who Marcus was. 8 years ago, she loved him without knowing his real world. She only knew he was Marcus, the mysterious man who liked to sit in the darkest corner and listen to her play the piano. He never talked about work. He never explained why he had so much money. Why, sometimes, men in black suits followed him like shadows, and she never asked, because she was too happy to care about anything beyond their love. But now it was different. Now she had Emma, and she needed to know who the man stepping into her daughter's life truly was. Sophia opened her old laptop, typed Marcus Blackwood into the search bar, and what appeared made the blood in her body turn cold. The Blackwood Empire, a mafia kingpin, control over Manhattan's underworld, articles about cases that never had enough evidence to prosecute, rivals disappearing without a trace, shady deals, a terrifying kind of power where a single nod from him could decide the fate of dozens of people. Sophia read one article after another, her hands shaking so badly she could barely scroll. She read about his father, Victor Blackwood, the boss who built the empire from ash and blood. She read about Victor's sudden death and Marcus taking over when he was only 27. She read about the scar on Marcus's face, the result of a failed assassination attempt, a shooter who was never found, at least, not alive. Sophia snapped the laptop shut and shoved it away as if it were burning. She clutched her head, breathing fast, and fear spread through her body. Marcus Blackwood was Mafia, the man she once loved, the man who had just saved her daughter, the man who was slowly stepping into the life of mother and child, a criminal kingpin. She had let a dangerous man get close to Emma. She had let her daughter call him Uncle Marcus, hug him, trust him. She had, but then, in the middle of her panic, other images rose in Sophia's mind. Marcus kneeling to Emma's eye level to speak with her. Marcus sitting patiently for hours, listening to Emma chatter about school and the stray cat. Marcus bringing the pastel set because he knew she loved orange without anyone having to tell him. Marcus carrying Emma all the way to the hospital, gentle as if she were the most precious treasure on earth. Marcus keeping watch beside the hospital bed through the night, draping his vest over Sophia when she fell asleep, shivering. Marcus looking at Sophia with eyes she knew were not pretending. The eyes of a man who had loved her for 8 years, a man who had never stopped searching, even after she vanished without a single word. Was that the gaze of a monster? Were those the actions of a cruel man? Sophia sat in the dark, her heart split in two between reason and feeling. One part of her screamed to stay away, to protect Emma, to run before it was too late. But another part, the part that had loved Marcus 8 years ago and never truly stopped, whispered that he was not what the headlines said. He might be a mafia kingpin to the outside world, but to her, to Emma, he was only Marcus, the gentleman who kept her daughter's dreams safe. She needed to talk to him. She needed to hear him explain. She needed to look into his eyes and decide whether she could trust him. Sophia picked up her phone and stared at the name Marcus Blackwood in her contacts, and after a long moment of hesitation, she typed a short message. "We need to talk. Not with Emma. 10 o'clock at night." The amber hearth had been closed for hours. Maggie had gone home after Sophia asked her to watch Emma for a little while. Now only the dim, golden light from a small table lamp beside the bar softened the room. Sophia sat at the table near the piano, both hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had already gone cold. When the doorbell chimed gently, she did not lift her head. She knew it was him. She could recognize the sound of his footsteps even with her eyes closed. Marcus stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and stood there for a moment as if waiting for permission. He wore a simple black sweater, no suit jacket, no aura of a powerful kingpin. Just Marcus, the man she once loved. But Sophia could not look at him the way she used to. What she had read on the internet still carved at her mind like knives. "Sit down," Sophia said, calmer than she expected her own voice to be. "We have a lot to talk about." Marcus sat in the chair across from her, his gray eyes never leaving her for a single second. He did not ask what she wanted to say. He did not pretend not to know. He only sat there, waiting, like a man ready to face his sentence. "I looked you up," Sophia began, her voice trembling faintly even as she tried to control it. "The Blackwood Empire, a Mafia kingpin, control of Manhattan's underworld." She lifted her gaze to him, her blue eyes filled with pain and confusion. "Why did you never tell me, Marcus? 8 years ago, why did you not tell me?" Marcus was silent for a long time. Then he let out a breath that seemed to carry the weight of years of hiding. "Because I was afraid of losing you," he said, his voice low and rough. "I was afraid that if you knew who I was, you would run, and I could not bear that. You were the only light in my dark life, Sophia. I did not want my darkness to touch you. But I needed to know," Sophia said, her voice lifting with emotion. "I needed to know who the man I loved really was. I needed to know whether letting Emma near you is safe." Marcus looked straight into her eyes, and for the first time, she saw real hurt inside that cold, gray gaze. "I am not a good man, Sophia," he admitted, his voice steady. "I have done things you would not want to know. I was born into this family. I grew up in this world, and I had no choice but to become who my father wanted me to become. But I have my lines. I do not deal drugs. I do not traffic people. I do not kill innocent people. I control this empire in my own way, and I am trying to change it from the inside, even if it is very slow." He paused, then went on, his voice softer. "I am not a good man, but I am not a monster either, and I will never hurt you or Emma. Never." Sophia sat still, taking in his words. She did not know whether she should believe him, but there was one thing she knew. His eyes were not lying. Those eyes were still Marcus's eyes, still the eyes she loved. Sad, lonely, the eyes of a man who ached to be loved, but never knew how to open his heart. "Why did you not keep looking for me?" Sophia asked, and suddenly her voice broke. 8 years, Marcus. 8 years I thought you forgot me. 8 years I thought I was only a passing stranger in your life." "I did look," Marcus said, pain in every word. "I looked for you for months. I used every resource of the Blackwood Empire to find you, but you vanished like smoke. I did not know where you went. I did not know what happened. And in the end, when I could not find you, I thought you chose to leave. I thought you did not want to be with me." Sophia felt tears rise, and she did not fight them anymore. "My mother had late-stage cancer," she said, her voice choking. 1 week before the recital, I got the news. She had only months left to live. I had to go back to take care of her. I had to give up everything. School, music, and you, and him." Marcus sat frozen, his face turning white as if struck by thunder. "I did not want to drag you into my tragedy," Sophia continued, tears streaming. "I knew you would stay if I told you. I knew you would give up everything to be with me. But I did not want you to watch my mother die a little more every day. I did not want my pain to become your burden. I thought leaving was the best way to protect you." Marcus stood, moved to her side, and dropped to his knees beside her chair. His gray eyes were red, and for the first time since they found each other again, Sophia saw tears sliding down his cheeks. "You protected me," he said, his voice breaking apart. "And I hated you for 8 years because I thought you abandoned me. You faced your mother's death alone. You gave birth alone. You raised our child alone, while I sat in a luxurious penthouse and drowned in my own self-pity. I am sorry, Sophia. I am sorry I could not find you. I am sorry I was not there when you needed me most," Sophia cried. Marcus cried. And in the empty cafe in the middle of the night, 2 people who had lost each other for 8 years finally found each other again. Sophia reached out, trembling, and Marcus took her hand, his large palm wrapping around her smaller one as if he were afraid she might disappear again. They did not say anything else. They only sat there, hand in hand, letting tears wash away 8 years of pain and misunderstanding. Outside, snow began to fall again, whitening the old street, as if the world itself were cleansing the wounds of the past. Everything was starting to feel good again. After that night of talking in the cafe, Sophia and Marcus began to open their hearts to each other. He still came every weekend. He still made time for Emma. But now Sophia no longer stood far away, watching. She began to sit at the table with him. She began to talk about the small things in her day. She began to smile when their eyes met by accident. Emma was happier than ever, darting between her mother and Uncle Marcus as if this were the most natural thing in the world. And Sophia, for the first time in many years, began to believe that maybe she deserved happiness. But then, on an ordinary evening like any other, everything collapsed. Sophia was checking email on her old laptop when a message from an old college friend appeared. Her name was Sarah, the only friend Sophia still kept in contact with from her music school days. Sarah worked in the music industry now, and she had stumbled onto something she felt she had to tell Sophia immediately. Attached to the email was a forwarded chain of internal messages, and as Sophia read, the blood in her body seemed to turn to ice. 5 years ago, she had sent a demo to Whitmore Records, the label owned by James Whitmore, with the faint hope that someone might listen to her music. She had not used her real name. She signed only with initials S.W. because she did not want to ask favors from anyone. She wanted her music to speak for itself. The demo was Moonlit Promise, the song she wrote for Marcus, the song she had carried for so many years, and finally decided to share with the world. She waited for months, but she never received a reply. She thought her demo was not good enough. She thought she had no talent. She thought her dream of music had died forever. But now, reading the email chain Sarah sent, she learned the truth. Her demo had been received. It had been listened to. And it had been rejected, not because it was not good enough, but for a completely different reason. In the internal rejection email, one line stabbed straight through her heart, not aligned with current brand direction. Confirmed with Blackwood partner, Blackwood. Sophia read the name again and again, and each time, the fury inside her ignited hotter. James Whitmore was Marcus's business partner. She knew that from what she had read about the Blackwood empire. And now her demo had been rejected with the note, confirmed with Blackwood partner. There could be only one meaning. Marcus had known about her demo. Marcus had blocked it. Marcus had destroyed her last chance to chase her music dream. She snapped the laptop shut, her hands shaking so badly she could barely control them. Rage, betrayal, pain, all of it blended into a storm twisting in her chest. She had trusted him. She had begun to open to him. She had thought maybe they could start again. But it turned out that even when she tried to stand up on her own feet, he had quietly pushed her down without her ever knowing. The next day, when Marcus came to the cafe as usual, Sophia was waiting for him. Emma was upstairs with Maggie, and the cafe had closed early. When Marcus stepped inside, the smile on his lips died instantly when he saw her face. Sophia's blue eyes were no longer gentle the way they had been in recent days. They burned with a fire of anger he had never seen before. "Did you listen to my demo?" Sophia asked, her voice cold as ice. "The demo I sent to Whitmore Records 5 years ago. Moonlit Promise. Did you listen to it?" Marcus went still, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion. "What demo?" "Sophia, I do not understand what you are talking about." "Do not pretend," Sophia shouted, tears beginning to spill even as she tried to hold them back. "I saw the email," confirmed with Blackwood partner. "You blocked my demo. You destroyed the only chance I had to return to music. Why, Marcus? Why did you do that?" Marcus stepped closer, his face gone pale. "Sophia, I swear to you, I did not know about that demo. I never heard it. I never knew you sent it. James Whitmore is an investment partner of mine, but I do not interfere with the label's music approvals. I did not know, Sophia. I swear." Sophia shook her head, tears streaming. "I want to believe you. I truly want to, but I cannot. Not after everything that happened." She turned and walked quickly toward the stairs leading up to the apartment. Marcus called her name, his voice raw with pain and desperation. Sophia stopped for a single second, but she did not turn around. She only said one sentence, her voice breaking. "I need time. Please do not come here anymore." Then she disappeared behind the door, leaving Marcus standing alone in the quiet cafe, his heart shattered for the second time by the same woman. Marcus left the cafe with his heart weighted down, but instead of going back to the penthouse, he ordered Vince to take him straight to James Whitmore's office. No appointment, no notice, only a brief phone call, his voice cold as ice. And James Whitmore was in his office at 10 o'clock at night, sweat beading on his forehead even though it was winter outside. No one refuses a call from Marcus Blackwood. Not when his voice carries the sound of a man hunting the truth at any cost. 5 years ago, a demo was sent to your label, Marcus said the moment he entered. No greeting, no pleasantries. Moonlit promise. The sender was S.W. I need to know what happened to that demo. James Whitmore wiped at the sweat and immediately called the head of demo intake. Within half an hour, they found the file. Marcus sat down and read every page, every email, every internal note. And the truth slowly surfaced like a painful picture coming into focus. Sophia's demo had been received 5 years earlier, at exactly the time the label was reshuffling staff. A low-level employee, newly hired, inexperienced, with no real authority, had listened to the demo and rejected it with the reason, not aligned with current brand direction. The note, confirmed with Blackwood Partner, was shorthand in the internal system. It meant they had checked whether the demo overlapped with any projects currently funded by Blackwood. It did not mean confirmation with Marcus himself. The demo was never escalated. It was tossed into the digital trash like hundreds of demos every month, forgotten by an employee who had no idea they were holding the heart of a woman in their hands. Marcus looked at James Whitmore, gray eyes dark as a sky before a storm. Where is that employee? He left 3 years ago, James Whitmore stammered. I swear to you, Marcus, I did not know about this. The demo never reached me, or anyone with decision power. If I had known, I would have. Enough, Marcus cut in, his voice more tired than angry. I need the original file of that demo. Right now. 10 minutes later, Marcus sat alone in the black Bentley parked at the curb, earphones plugged into his phone. And for the first time in his life, he listened to the demo Sophia had sent 5 years ago. Moonlit Promise, the song she wrote for him when they were still in love. The song she meant to play at her graduation recital. The song he had never heard from her own hands until Emma played it in the cafe on Christmas night. The melody rose, clear and pure, recorded on simple equipment, yet filled with the entire heart of the one playing it. Sophia's voice joined softly with the notes, the lyrics speaking of moonlight guiding two lovers back to each other no matter how far the distance, of a promise never to forget, no matter how many years passed, and Marcus understood. This was not just a demo sent to a record label. This was a confession she never spoke out loud. This was her attempt to stand up again after years of struggle. Her attempt to chase a dream she had been forced to set aside. Her attempt to let the song she wrote for him be heard by someone, anyone, and it had been thrown into the trash by an employee who knew nothing. Marcus pulled off the earphones and sat in the darkness of the car, and for the first time in many years, the coldest Mafia kingpin in New York cried like a child, not from anger, not from betrayal, but from pain, from regret, from the realization that the woman he loved had tried to rise again and again, only to be knocked down by life every time. She sent the song she wrote for him with a fragile hope, and that hope was crushed by the indifference of a stranger. He had to fix this. He had to tell her the truth. He had to make her song heard, cherished, shining the way it deserved. Marcus wiped his tears, pulled out his phone, and called James Whitmore again. I need you to record Moonlit Promise again. His voice was low and solid. Highest studio quality, a full orchestra, and I need it within 1 week. On the other end, James Whitmore did not dare ask why. He answered with a single word. Done. A week after the tear-soaked confrontation, Sophia still was not ready to see Marcus. She worked like a machine, making coffee, serving customers, teaching Emma piano, but her eyes were empty, and her smile felt forced. Emma noticed that her mother was not happy. The little girl did not ask why Uncle Marcus was not coming anymore. She only held her mother a little tighter each night before sleep and softly sang Moonlit Promise, as if that were the only way she knew to comfort her. One weekend afternoon, while Sophia was wiping down the bar, Maggie came over holding a small box in her hands. Someone sent this for you, she said, her voice gentle, full of understanding. He did not come in. He only asked me to pass it along. He said you do not need to answer. Just read it. Sophia stared at the box, her heart tightening. She knew it was from Marcus, even though Maggie did not say his name. She wanted to refuse it, wanted to send it back, but her hands moved on their own and took it. Maggie said nothing more. She only patted Sophia's shoulder once, then walked away, leaving Sophia alone with the heavy box in her hands. That night, after Emma was fast asleep, Sophia sat by the window and opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small silver USB drive. She picked up the letter and recognized Marcus's handwriting at once. Strong strokes, slightly slanted to the right, the kind she used to love 8 years ago. Sophia, I know you do not want to see me, and I respect that, but there are things I need you to know. Not to ask for forgiveness, but because you deserve to know the truth. I investigated your demo. It was rejected by a low-level employee who was new to the job, someone with no real authority, and the demo was never escalated to anyone higher. The note, confirmed with Blackwood Partner, was only shorthand in the internal system. It meant they checked whether your demo overlapped with any projects Blackwood was funding. It did not mean they confirmed anything with me. I swear to you, I never knew you sent that demo. I never heard it until last week, and when I heard it, when I realized it was the song you wrote for me, my heart broke. Sophia stopped, tears already sliding down her cheeks. She drew in a deep breath, then kept reading. I cannot change the past. I cannot erase the 5 years you spent believing your music was not good enough. The 5 years you gave up on your dream because of a rejection you never deserved. But I can do one thing. I asked James Whitmore to record Moonlit Promise again with professional studio quality, with a full orchestra, with all the dignity your song deserves. On this USB is that recording. This is your song, Sophia. The song you wrote with your heart, the song you sent out with hope, and the song I am sorry I did not hear sooner. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am only asking you to listen to your own song and know that it is beautiful, it deserves to be heard, and it never should have been thrown into silence. Always loving you, Marcus. Sophia folded the letter, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the USB. She sat there for a long time, staring out the window where snow drifted down softly. Then, finally, she plugged the USB into her old laptop. There was only one file, Moonlit Promise, official version. She pressed play. The melody rose, but it was no longer the raw, simple recording she had sent 5 years ago. This was a full arrangement, a clear piano line leading the way, violins weaving in with aching tenderness, cellos warm and deep, lifting every note from beneath. Her melody, the song she wrote for Marcus on summer nights 8 years ago. Now it sounded as if it belonged on a grand stage, in a magnificent concert hall, in any place where true music is honored. Sophia cried, silent tears streaming down her cheeks, her body trembling as each note reached into her heart. This was the dream she thought had died. This was the hope she thought she had lost. And Marcus, the man she had shouted at and pushed away, had quietly brought it back to life for her without asking for anything in return. She did not know how long she sat there, listening again and again until the music lived inside her bones. Then a small hand touched her shoulder. Sophia turned and saw Emma standing there, eyes half closed from sleep, her lips moving with worry as she saw her mother crying. "Mom, are you sad?" Emma asked, her voice sleepy but full of care. Sophia pulled her daughter into her arms and held her tight, and her tears still would not stop. "I am okay, sweetheart. I am just listening to a very beautiful song." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at her mother with clear blue eyes and said something that made Sophia hold her breath. "Mom, when you are done being sad, can we smile again? You have such a pretty smile. I like it better when you smile." Sophia looked at her daughter, looked into that innocent, loving gaze, and for the first time in days, she smiled. A smile still wet with tears, but real. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, kissing Emma's forehead. "When we are done being sad, we will smile again. I promise." 1 week after the day they held each other in his office while snow fell outside, Marcus invited Sophia to an event he said was very important. He did not give details. He only told her to dress nicely and bring Emma, because the little girl would love what he had prepared. Sophia was curious, but she did not ask for more. She had learned that Marcus liked surprises in his own way, and his surprises always carried a thoughtfulness she never expected. That afternoon, the black Bentley brought mother and daughter to a luxury hotel in Midtown Manhattan, where a launch ceremony was underway, with hundreds of guests dressed in formal attire. Emma's eyes went wide as she took in the sparkling crystal chandeliers on the ceiling, the banquet tables covered in crisp white cloth, and the small stage with a glossy black grand piano. "Mom, it is so pretty," she whispered, clutching her mother's hand. Marcus was waiting for them at the entrance. He wore a black suit as usual, but today there was an added warmth in his smile when he saw them. He bent down and lifted Emma into his arms, and the little girl wrapped her arms around his neck as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Uncle Marcus, what day is it today?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Today is a special day," Marcus answered, his gaze shifting to Sophia with a look full of meaning. "I want to introduce something important to you and your mother." He guided them inside, and Sophia realized this was not an ordinary social party. On the stage hung a large banner, "Launch Ceremony for the Children's Music Foundation," sponsored by Blackwood Corporation. Around the room were photographs of children playing instruments, singing, smiling brightly beside pianos. Sophia stopped, staring without blinking. "What is this?" she whispered. Marcus set Emma down so the little girl could run off to look at the pictures. Then he turned back to Sophia. "This is a project I have been preparing for months," he said, his voice low and sincere. "The Children's Music Foundation. A foundation dedicated to funding instruments, teachers, and scholarships for children from difficult backgrounds who want to pursue music. Children like Emma. Children with talent, but no opportunity." Sophia looked at him, her heart racing. Now she understood why he brought her here. But she did not understand why he was looking at her as if he were waiting for something. "And I need someone to run it," Marcus continued. He reached into his inner pocket, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to her. "Someone who understands music. Who understands the struggle of chasing a dream. Who understands what it feels like to be rejected and to stand up again. I want that person to be you, Sophia. I want you to be the program director of the Children's Music Foundation." Sophia took the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. She opened it and found a detailed job description, a generous salary, and benefits she had never dared to dream of. She looked up at Marcus, her blue eyes filled with emotion and doubt. "Are you offering this because you love me? Or because I deserve it?" she asked plainly, her voice steady even as her heart spun. Marcus met her gaze without flinching. "Because you deserve it," he said, firm and certain. "You have taught piano to poor children for years without asking for anything. You understand what it means to give up a dream because of circumstances. You know what it feels like when music is the only thing that keeps someone from collapsing. No one is more suited for this job than you, Sophia. No one." He paused, then gave a small smile. "And my love for you, that is just a bonus. It has nothing to do with this work. Whether you accept or not, I will still love you the same." Sophia looked at him, into those sincere gray eyes, and she knew he was not lying. He was not offering this out of pity, not to keep her close. He was offering it because he truly believed she could do it, because he saw her worth, the worth she herself had forgotten long ago. "I accept," Sophia said, her voice soft but filled with resolve. "Not because of you, but because children like Emma deserve the opportunity I never had." Marcus smiled, the brightest smile Sophia had seen since they found each other again. He did not speak. He only took her hand and squeezed gently, a quiet promise that from now on, they would build something good together. Across the room, Emma stood at the grand piano, her tiny fingers touching the keys. A clear, delicate sound rang out, like the opening notes of a new chapter in the lives of all three of them. Everything was becoming better than it had ever been. Sophia began a new job at the Children's Music Foundation. Emma was happier with Uncle Marcus visiting so often, and the relationship between Sophia and Marcus was slowly healing, like broken pieces being fitted back into a complete picture. But happiness sometimes arrives too quickly, and so do storms. One afternoon in early March, when Sophia had just picked Emma up from school and brought her back to the cafe, a strange man was waiting at the door. He was tall and thin. His brown hair was messy. Stubble covered his jaw like he had not shaved in days. His eyes were bloodshot, as if he had been drinking. Sophia stopped cold when she recognized the face she thought she would never have to see again. Alex Foster, Emma's biological father. Sophia pulled Emma behind her on instinct, her heart pounding out of control with fear. Alex had not come looking for her once in the past 6 years. Not a single call, not a single message, not a single dollar of support. He disappeared the night she told him she was 3 months pregnant, and he never came back. So why was he standing here now, with that calculating look and that fake smile? "Sophia." "Long time," Alex said, his voice sweet in a way that sounded false. "I heard you have been doing well. And is this my daughter? She is big now." Emma hid behind her mother, blue eyes frightened as she stared at the stranger. She had never known who her father was. Sophia never spoke of him, and now this sudden appearance left the little girl confused and uneasy. "What do you want?" Sophia asked, forcing her voice to stay calm, even as she trembled inside. Alex shrugged, his expression careless, as if the answer should be obvious. "I want to see my daughter. I have the right, do I not? I am her biological father. You left when I was 3 months pregnant," Sophia said, her voice starting to shake with anger. "You never contacted us. You never asked how she was. You never paid a single cent. You have no right here." Alex gave a short, mocking laugh. His eyes turned cold, threatening. "The law does not see it that way, Sophia. I am her biological father, and if you do not let me see her, I will sue for custody. I heard you are seeing a rich guy. I guess you do not want this in court and in the newspapers, do you?" Sophia felt the blood in her body turn to ice. Now she understood. Alex had not come because he missed his child. He had not come because he wanted to be a father. He came for money. He had heard she was involved with Marcus Blackwood, and he wanted to use Emma to blackmail her. Sophia did not answer. She only pulled Emma into the cafe and slammed the door shut. Alex stood outside for a moment, wearing that thin, ugly smile. Then he walked away, his threat drifting back like poison. I will be back, Sophia, and when I do, you will have to choose. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sophia sat alone in the dark, her hands shaking so badly she could not hold a glass of water. She was afraid of losing Emma, afraid of facing Alex in court, afraid she would not have enough money for a lawyer, afraid that no matter how hard she tried, life would still take away the thing she loved most. She did not plan to tell Marcus. She did not want to pull him into her trouble again, but Marcus already knew. Vince, with the wide information network of the Blackwood Empire, reported it the moment Alex appeared at the cafe. The next day, Marcus came to see Sophia with a thick file in his hand. He did not ask whether she wanted help, because he knew she would refuse. He only set the file on the table and spoke in a calm voice edged with steel. Vince investigated Alex Foster. He opened the file and showed her the pages inside. He has a record of domestic violence against an ex-girlfriend 3 years ago. He is an alcoholic. He does not have steady work, and he currently owes a large debt to people he should never owe. He did not come here for Emma. He came because he thinks he can extort you through me. Sophia stared at the pages, reading the cold lines that laid out the past of the man who had once been the father of her child, and nausea rose in her throat. She had once trusted Alex. She had once believed he might change when he learned he was going to be a father, but that man abandoned her, and now he was back only to use her. I do not want to ask you to use your power, Sophia said, her voice small but firm. I want to handle this the right way, through the law. Marcus nodded, not arguing. I hired the best lawyer to advise you, he said gently, and I will not interfere in a way you do not want, but you need to know one thing. He looked straight into her eyes, and in those gray eyes, Sophia saw fierce protection, a promise that could not be shaken. He will not touch Emma, not ever. I will make sure of that, no matter how. 3 days after her meeting with Marcus, just as Sophia was beginning to believe everything would be all right, Alex Foster came back. But this time, he was no longer wearing that fake, polite mask. He showed up at the cafe in the late afternoon, when only a few customers remained, gathering their coats and preparing to leave. And he was drunk. The stench of alcohol rolled off him. His eyes were bloodshot. His steps were unsteady as he shoved the door open and staggered inside. Sophia was behind the counter, and the moment she saw Alex, her heart dropped straight into her stomach. Emma was sitting in the corner, playing with the box of colors Marcus had given her, completely unaware that a storm was crashing in. Sophia stepped out from behind the bar, forcing her voice to stay calm even as she shook inside. Alex, you are drunk, she said, low and wary. You need to go home. Alex sneered. The laugh that came out of him was hoarse, mean. Home. I am not going anywhere until I see my daughter, he barked, loud enough that the remaining customers jerked their heads around. You have been hiding her from me. You are running around with that billionaire, and you forgot who I am. But I am her father, and I have rights. Emma heard the shouting. She looked up, blue eyes wide with fear, as she saw the strange man charging toward her mother. She set the colors down and ran to hide behind Sophia, her tiny hands clutching the fabric of her mother's skirt. Sophia pulled Emma further back, placing herself in front of her child like a shield. You are not coming near my daughter, she said, her voice trembling but her resolve fierce. You left when I needed you most. You do not have any right here. Alex moved closer. His face was flushed with alcohol and rage. Who do you think you are to stop me? He snarled, his hand lifted as if to strike. I will show you what it means to. He did not finish the sentence. The cafe door flew open, and Marcus Blackwood walked in. The room seemed to freeze. Marcus stood there in his familiar black wool coat, but the man he wore on his face today was entirely different. This was not the gentle Marcus who sat with a cup of cocoa and listened to Emma's stories. Not the warm Marcus who held Sophia's hand and whispered apologies. This was Marcus Blackwood, the Mafia kingpin, the man the entire Manhattan underworld bowed to. His gray eyes were ice, sharp as blades, and when that gaze locked onto Alex went rigid, as if someone had dumped a bucket of freezing water over his head. Marcus did not speak. He only walked forward, slow, deliberate, every step a threat. Then he stopped between Alex and Sophia and Emma. He did not need words. His eyes said everything. This is my territory. These are my people. And if you touch them, you will vanish from this earth before you even understand what happened. Alex backed up one step, then another. He finally understood who he was facing, and even his drunkenness could not erase the instinct to survive. He had heard of Marcus Blackwood. He had heard what happened to people who crossed the Blackwood Empire. And in that moment, he knew he had made a deadly mistake. I just want to see my kid," Alex stammered, his voice stripped of its earlier aggression, replaced by shaking fear. Marcus opened his mouth, and when he spoke, his voice was low and lethal, like the growl of a wild animal before it strikes. "You have 5 seconds to leave, and if you appear near these two again, I will make sure you disappear. Forever." Alex did not need to hear it twice. He turned and ran, stumbling into the door, then vanishing into the dark outside. The door slammed shut, and the cafe fell into silence. Sophia stood there, her knees nearly giving out from relief. She wanted to speak, wanted to thank Marcus, but her throat locked around the words. Then a small cry rose behind her. Sophia turned and saw Emma trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. The little girl let go of her mother's skirt and ran to Marcus, wrapping her arms around his leg as if it were the only thing keeping her safe. "Uncle Marcus, I am so scared," Emma sobbed, her voice broken and shaking. He yelled at Mom. He wanted to hit Mom. "I am so scared." Marcus bent down and lifted Emma gently, holding her close. Emma buried her face against his shoulder, crying hard, and Marcus patted her back, his voice softer than it had ever been with anyone. "I am here now, Emma," he whispered, pressing a light kiss into her hair. "No one is allowed to scare you anymore. No one is allowed to scare your mom anymore. I promise." Emma clung to his neck. Her sobs began to quiet, and she whispered into his ear like a prayer. "Do not go, okay? I want you here with me and Mom." Marcus closed his eyes and held her tighter. When he opened them again, his gaze met Sophia's across the room. Sophia stood a few steps away, tears shining in her eyes, her lips forming the word "thank you" without sound. Marcus said nothing. He only reached out his hand, and Sophia stepped forward, letting him pull her into the circle of his other arm. The three of them stood there, holding each other in the quiet cafe, and for the first time, they felt like a family. 1 year later, Christmas night came again, and the amber hearth was no longer a secret refuge for lonely souls. It had become a symbol of love and hope, a place where the story of Marcus and Sophia was told like the most beautiful legend anyone could ever wish to witness. Tonight, the cafe was dressed more lavishly than ever. Warm golden lights glowed across the windows. Green pine wreaths hung on the door, and a Christmas tree nearly brushing the ceiling stood glittering with gold stars and red ribbons. Inside, the lively laughter of guests blended with the scent of cinnamon, cocoa, and gingerbread, creating a warmth so deep that even the snow outside could not chill it. This was a special night, the first charity concert for the Children's Music Foundation, and also the night Emma would perform in public for the first time. She was 6 now. Her curly blonde hair was neatly tied back with the familiar red ribbon. She wore a deep red velvet dress her mother had chosen. Her blue eyes shone with nervous excitement as she stared at the piano Uncle Marcus had given them, placed with honor on the small stage at the front. Sophia stood beside Marcus in the front row, her hand gripping his. Her heart felt as if it might burst with happiness. 1 year ago, she had been a single mother struggling through 2 jobs, afraid every day of what the future might take from her and from her daughter. Now she was the program director of a charity foundation changing the lives of hundreds of children. She had a man who loved her and Emma without conditions, and she was watching her daughter shine on the stage Sophia once dreamed of. Emma stepped onto the stage and bowed to the audience with an adorable little dip of her head. Then she sat on the piano bench. She placed her tiny fingers on the keys, took a deep breath the way her mother taught her, and began to play. Moonlit promise filled the room, clearer and purer than ever on the piano Marcus had restored with all his love. Emma did not play perfectly. She still missed a few notes in the difficult passages, but she played with her whole heart, and that was worth more than any flawless technique. When the final note faded into silence, the entire cafe rose to its feet in applause. Emma bowed again, her cheeks pink with pride, then ran off the stage and into her mother's arms. "Mom, I did it!" she cried. Sophia held her tightly, tears of joy sliding down her cheeks. Marcus stood as well, applauding with everyone else, but his eyes never left Sophia and Emma. As the applause softened, he stepped onto the stage. The cafe fell quiet in surprise. Marcus was not a man who enjoyed standing in front of people. Seeing him there, under dozens of curious eyes, was something that almost never happened. He looked down at Sophia, and when he spoke, his voice was deep, warm, and filled with emotion in a way she had never heard before. 8 years ago, he said, I met a girl playing piano in a small bar, and I knew my life would never be the same again. I lost her. I found her again, and now I do not want to lose her ever again. Marcus stepped down from the stage, walked to Sophia, and dropped to one knee. The whole cafe held its breath. Emma's eyes went wide. Both hands clapped over her mouth in shock. Sophia stood frozen, tears already rising before she even fully understood what was happening. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small red velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a diamond ring, simple and elegant, sparkling under the warm lights. "Sophia Winters," he said, his voice trembling slightly with emotion. "You taught me what it means to love, what it means to sacrifice, what it means to stand up again after falling so many times. You and Emma are the family I never dared to dream of, the light I never believed I deserved. I am not perfect. I have a past I am not proud of, but I promise I will spend the rest of my life protecting you and loving you. Sophia, will you marry me?" Sophia cried, Marcus cried, and even Emma cried, though she did not entirely understand why. Sophia nodded, unable to speak because her throat had tightened shut. "Yes," she finally managed. "Yes, I will." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, stood, and pulled her into his arms. They kissed to the sound of applause and cheers, and Emma squeezed in between them, wrapping her arms around both. "We are a family now," she shouted, and laughter rippled through the cafe. Outside, snow began to fall, whitening Manhattan on Christmas night. One more year passed, and Christmas night came again. The amber hearth was still dressed in light and warmth, still filled with love the way it always was. But something was different. On the piano, there was now a small plaque that read, "Emma's Piano, where the dream began." And inside the cafe, the laughter of a happy family rang out, warmer than any fire in the hearth. The door opened, and Emma, now 7, burst in with a joyful shout. "Dad is home." Marcus walked in wearing a red sweater instead of a black suit, holding a box of ginger cookies covered in frosting and colorful candy. He bent down to scoop Emma into his arms, spun her once, then kissed the top of her head. Dad missed his little girl so much. From behind the bar, Sophia stepped out, her blonde hair down, her blue eyes bright with happiness, and beneath the soft sweater, her belly had begun to round gently. 5 months pregnant, and she had never looked more beautiful. Marcus set Emma down, walked to his wife, and placed a hand softly on her belly. "Is the baby okay?" he asked, his voice full of love. Sophia smiled and laid her hand over his. "The baby is kicking," she said. "The baby is saying hello to Dad." Emma ran over, pressed her ear to her mother's belly, and her eyes lit up. "The baby is talking to me," she squealed. "The baby says it wants to hear me play piano." Marcus and Sophia looked at each other, then laughed together. This was their family. Not perfect, not easy, but real, and full of love. They had walked through darkness. They had crossed pain. And now they were standing in the light, together. Outside the window, snow fell softly, whitening the old street. And inside the little cafe, the piano began to sing as Emma climbed onto the bench and played Moonlit Promise, the song her mother wrote for her father 8 years ago. The song about a promise beneath the moonlight that true love will always find its way back home. And they had come home to each other, forever. This story leaves us with many precious lessons about life and love. Sometimes misunderstandings and cruel circumstances can tear us away from the people we love. But true love never truly disappears. It simply waits for the right time to return and heal every wound. Sophia taught us that resilience and a mother's love can carry a woman through any hardship. Marcus showed us that even the people who seem the coldest and hardest can have a heart that knows how to love and longs to be loved. And Emma, that little angel, reminded us that sometimes the greatest miracles come from the simplest places, from tiny fingers on piano keys. If this story touched your heart, if you felt moved and want to hear more heartfelt stories like this every day, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you will not miss any videos. Please press like and share this video with the people you love, because sometimes a story can change someone's entire day, can remind them that love still exists and hope never disappears. We would truly love to hear how you felt about this story. How did you feel watching the journey of Marcus, Sophia, and Emma? Did it remind you of anything in your own real life? Maybe a love you lost, a chance you missed, or someone you are still waiting for? Please share with us in the comments below, because every one of your stories is precious, and we want to listen to every feeling deep in your heart. Thank you for spending your valuable time following this story with us. We wish you and your family good health, joyful days, and peace in every season. No matter how difficult life becomes, remember that love and hope are always somewhere, waiting for you, just as Moonlit